am not fully dressed. I had a whole outfit planned and I started recording and then I realized that I forgot to put the outfit on. I will be back momentarily. Alrighty, hello, welcome back to my channel if you're new here. My name is Katie and it is long time no see, no speak directly to the camera. I haven't filmed a sit-down video since I left Berkeley back in June. And again, if you're new here, I am a recent graduate of UC Berkeley, where I studied anthropology with an emphasis in archaeology, and I am now a graduate student at Parsons School of Design in none other than New York City, which every time I say it out loud or I'm like on the subway, I keep having these moments of realization, even though I've been here for a couple of months now at this point, where I'm like, I am in New York City. That is weird to me. Beside the point, yes, I'm a graduate student at Parsons School of Design where I study in a program called Fashion Studies, which is basically the theory and the history of fashion as a socio-cultural phenomenon, why people engage in fashion, why we study fashion, how we define fashion, so on and so forth. We are currently going on week 9 of the semester. I've already done my midterms and everything, so this video is coming at you a little bit late. When I transferred to UC Berkeley, which also an important part of my story is that I am a community college transfer student to Berkeley, I decided that I wanted to kind of track how I was feeling and what I was thinking about as I was going into the new academic year with a fears and goals video for that academic year. My first one was my junior year at Berkeley, my second one was my senior year, and now I'm back for the third iteration of this video, which is my fears and goals for my first year as a graduate student in a completely new field that I have never studied before. This video is coming very late in the semester. I know I said I just finished midterms and this is supposed to be like goals and fears for my first year, which you're like supposedly supposed to do at the beginning of an excursion, just like you do New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year. This is meant to be like a prepping for the semester, like reflecting kind of exercise. And let's just say that the moving process, the adjustment process was a lot more difficult and emotionally challenging, slightly traumatizing than I expected it to be. So I'm a little behind on the YouTube videos thing. You know, I want this to look back on. Hopefully anyone watching will find this interesting. So I have written everything down in my handy dandy notebook. So it has been about 2 months since I've been here. So I tried to write down the ones that I was thinking and feeling about back in August or like just before I moved, and not how they might have been impacted by my experiences thus far. But let's get into it. As usual, we are starting with the fears because I like to get those out of the way, clear the air, and then end the video on a good note. So, number 1, not doing well and struggling to keep up. I think this is the number 1 fear that I always have, that I'm sure many other students can relate to as you are heading into a new academic year and into a new academic situation. By the time I'd gotten to my last semester as a senior at UC Berkeley, I pretty much knew what to expect. It wasn't going to be that much of a challenge. I was taking classes I knew I was going to enjoy, but this is a whole new situation. I am not only going to graduate school, which is a bit of a big scary deal, but I am also switching fields. I'm no longer studying anthropology, archaeology, but an entirely different field, very new, and is definitely struggling to figure out what it is. It's also very much based in the School of Fashion History, which comes out of England and the British School of Thought, and not so much from like an anthropological perspective. There is a little bit of like sociology going on, but the anthropology of it has just been kind of dismissed. So coming from an anthropology background, interesting. On top of that, I'm also moving from a rural suburb in the middle of Central California to one of the most densely populated cities on the face of the planet. I know I talked a lot about it in the Scholarpreneurs podcast, which if you haven't listened to, I'll leave a link to the episode down below, about why I was having these fears, and I definitely have thoughts about them now as someone who's 2 months post-move. But if I'm thinking about it from the position of Katie 2 months ago, it's really just the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of leaving my comfort zone, leaving California, the place where I grew up and have spent my entire life, an environment I'm familiar with, and going somewhere completely new that is just a whole different way of life. And it's not just that the city itself is a city and not like a little rural suburb, but it's also the culture shock and the fact that there are so many different cultures so densely packed together in one place that becomes a difficult space to navigate. Beyond just like unknown, like I don't know what it's like to be there, there were also things that I knew that I would have to experience that I have never experienced before. So like taking the bus, I've never taken a bus before. Taking the train, I've never taken a subway before. Like having to navigate a city, a lot of stuff that I've never done before that I will now have to do, and that's a big scary thing. Leaving my family behind is another thing that I think really impacts the struggle aspect of your academics and not doing well. Basically, the fear of not doing well really just comes from a place of like knowing that I'm going to have to adjust a lot, and a lot of mental and emotional effort is going to have to go into that adjustment period rather than being able to focus on my academics. Then there is also just the pressure of being a student and wanting to do well, learning a new field of study. It's a challenge. There's a lot to catch up on. I also want to do well because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about the field, and I think it would be cool to publish or to be published, and I have also been kind of toying with the idea of continuing my studies and research on into a PhD, so I would like to do well while I'm here with that goal in mind. Alright, number 2. Fear number 2 is coping with my ADHD in grad school, because like I said, by the time I was a second semester senior at Berkeley, I'd had it figured out. Like it was not new. To be quite frank, it wasn't challenging anymore. I had gotten used to my environment. I knew exactly how much effort I needed to put into my assignments to get a good grade. I knew exactly what I was doing. Like I had just figured out the coping mechanisms that I needed to figure out for undergrad. But again, graduate school is a whole nother thing. Graduate school is not as structured as undergraduate school, and that is a huge thing that ADHD brains struggle with, is having a lack of structure. It's really difficult for me to impose my internal structure. External structure is one of the only things that helps me function and be capable, essentially. So I know that grad school, like the parameters around assignments and schedule and expectations of when you should be doing your work and all this kind of stuff are you're basically left to your own devices. So I am worried that I'm not going to figure that out, or that my ADHD is going to be detrimental to the point that I won't be able to cope with the difficulties and challenges of graduate school. To counter that though, I do think one of the good things about ADHD in grad school is that like I'm going into something that I am really interested in, and one component of ADHD is hyperfixation, which is where we get really fixated on something and really interested in that thing. ADHD brains are really good at like engaging with that thing and doing something with it for the duration that we're fixated on it. I wouldn't have applied to a program about something I wasn't fixated on at some point in time. I am projecting into the future that, and maybe a little bit of the experience I've had so far, my ADHD may potentially be helpful in that case because it allows me to like unlock that part of my brain that can access really deep critical thought, motivation, follow through, all of those kinds of things that we struggle with. That was number 2. Number 3 is not liking the program. I think this is a fear that anyone has going into a program, is that you can read about it as much as you can on their website. You can talk to students, you can read the syllabi, you can do the reading list, like the summer reading list that they give you once you've gotten in and all that kind of stuff, but it's like no matter how much research you do, you never quite know what the program is like until you're in the classroom like doing the program. And it's just like there's so much about fashion studies that I disagree with that I'm worried I'm in the wrong program. When I was applying, I was much more interested in the program at FIT, which was more focused on like a Western chronology of fashion history alongside the practical skills of textile and fashion conservation in a museum setting. I thought that that's what I wanted when I was applying to these programs, and then got rejected by FIT, which is one of the reasons why I had such a strong reaction to that rejection. And I know that this program is much more theory-based, it's much more like critical analysis, less emphasis on practical skills. In looking at the two programs, I thought that the conservation track is kind of what I wanted to do. So as I was going into this, I was very worried that I wasn't going to like this program, but you know, in hindsight, I have always really liked theory. I love theory, in fact, and I love arguing theory and criticizing theory. I just really miss doing practical stuff with my hands, and right now trying to like mitigate that by taking up crafting projects again like I used to. So when I was going into the program, I was worried I wasn't going to like it for those reasons. Fear number 4, not liking the East Coast. From where I stand now, I would say it's complicated. I think that fear was realized to a certain extent. I think I was right in knowing that the adjustment from West Coast to East Coast was going to be a lot and overwhelming. And one of the defining characteristics that constitutes culture shock is feelings of hatred and feelings of fear and really intense homesickness and that kind of stuff. And I can for sure say that I experienced that quite a bit when I got here, and I am still dealing with transitioning to just a new environment. It's going to take some time to adjust. It's starting to happen. I'm kind of starting to ease into maybe sort of liking some parts of the East Coast. You know, I grew up across the street from a farm, down the street from a creek. I miss that. I really miss that a lot. On average, I see a handful of trees unless I go out of my way to go to a park or walk down a street that is lined with trees in New York. Otherwise, I don't see greenery all that much, and that really bothers me. I just miss trees. I miss running through nature. I miss pretending like I am some mystical, aloof elf that is wandering through the forests of Mirkwood being all mysterious. Who's that girl over there in the cloak? This is so stupid. It's how I envisioned myself as a kid. And I have in fact worn a cloak to Berkeley's campus. And see, here's the thing, Berkeley is a campus. Parsons and the new school has a building that's called the University Center that I would kind of constitute a campus, and the rest of the university is just scattered through the city, kind of like NYU is. And I mean, it kind of has to be when you're in a place like New York. You don't really have space for a campus, but the whole point of this is that Berkeley's campus had nature spaces, and the built environment in New York specifically is really difficult. The humidity in the summer too. However, I have started to find things that I do like about the East Coast. As it's getting cooler here, we actually have fall. That's amazing. As humid and disgusting as it was here, now we're kind of we have this cool, fun fall moment, and then it might snow later. So experiencing weather for the first time essentially has been fun. I also love that I'm closer to Kaylin, the redhead academic, and Connecticut is gorgeous. The longer I'm here and the more time I spend in the city, the more I'm okay, I can get the romantic vibes of the city. Number 5 is friends and social life, which historically we know that this is something that I stress out about. I have always had a difficult time making friends. I have also suffered some kind of friendship traumas that have impacted my ability to make and keep friends, and also my ability to admit when I have friends or to be open and vulnerable with my friends. So I always struggle with that, and as someone who is neurodivergent as well, I have spent a lot of time in elementary school just having a very typical neurodivergent experience with friendship, where I am, because of my ADHD, just too loud, obnoxious, too much for other people, and they would tell me that. So I was often pushed out of friend groups. All of that translates to now being an adult and almost 30 years old. I really do struggle to make friends, to identify friends, to know when I've made friends with someone, and to feel comfortable around people who I might consider a friend, and to kind of fully unmask the ADHD around people, just because I don't know, it's really difficult. ADHD masking is something that I do subconsciously to kind of just fit into the social climate. Grad school is not necessarily about making friendships and connections the way that we do in undergraduate. It's more about developing colleagues and an academic and professional network. So I've been focusing less on the friendship aspect, more on the just general amicability and network and that kind of stuff with my classmates, as well as trying to be more of a friend to myself, spending more time with myself, feeling comfortable going and doing things by myself, especially because James isn't here, and James is my go-to person to do anything with. I mean, he is not just my romantic partner and my fiance, but he is my best friend. Yeah, just the social scene. We're humans. Humans need to be social to survive, and it sucks when you have a hard time socializing. So anyways, why don't we do a bit of a 180? Let's take all of these little fears, we're gonna put them in a little box, we're gonna set them aside for the moment, and we are going to instead talk about my goals. We're gonna talk about some positive things to wrap up this video. Goal number 1 is to figure out my thesis topic. So, as part of this program, I have to, it is not a taught degree, it is a degree that culminates in a thesis, so I have to write a 60 to 70 page thesis by the time I finish my second year, and I have to finish it in order to graduate for my second year of this program. It's not something that I feel like I have to have figured out by like the end of my first semester, but I would like to have a good idea of what I'm doing, or at least what direction I'm heading in by the time I finish my second semester, because once we head into our second year, that's when we have to start writing our thesis proposal and start doing our research. I am, however, currently writing a paper for my class. It's called Key Concepts, or Fashion Studies Key Concepts. We do have to write like a 20-page paper at the end of this particular class, and the topic that I am writing about I am finding very interesting. It's much bigger than I expected it to be, and definitely is not going to fit within the scope of a one 20-page paper, so I'm like kind of toying with the idea of making it my thesis. I don't know, we'll see. Because I also have another idea for a different class that I'm also very excited about. So we are making good progress on that goal is what I mean. Goal number 2 is to get an internship, or at least apply for an internship. Like I said, this program is very theory heavy and doesn't have a lot of emphasis on practical skills, but I would like to get some experience in museum spaces, maybe in collections management, to kind of assess whether or not that's something I'm interested in, and so I can start like developing those practical skills that would help me get a job after this degree. So the plan is to apply for some museum internships and maybe expand out from there with the recommendation of my professors into other collections areas, because museums aren't the only places that have collections. There's also archives, there's private collections, so on and so forth, so I am interested in that. Goal number 3 is to experience the city, which I don't know how this one's going. That goal does not have any parameters to it, so I don't really know how to assess whether or not I've experienced the city. I haven't like gone and done things, or like gone to things, or gone out with people. I do get lunch with a friend every now and then. I've gone to like the New York Public Library, Central Park, the Met, the Cooper Hewitt Museum, so like I've kind of experienced it in certain ways. But also one of the things that I've been trying to do to get a better sense of the neighborhood where my school is, and so I'm not so confused every time I get off a subway, is whenever I take a subway anywhere, I will like get out of the subway, usually more like Midtown, and then I will go down an avenue and over a block and down an avenue and back the other direction. I'll just like go like this until I get back down to school, just so like I get a better sense of the place, and like cool food places, bookstores, crafting stores that I might be interested in. So there are, like I said though, a lot of things that I have on a list that I am keeping to experience with James when he gets here, because I don't want him to feel completely left out of this experience, and there are things that I want to experience for the first time with him. So goal number 4 says to adjust to the lifestyle here, which I think is starting to happen. I don't really know what that goal means again. I think I just like don't want to be so stressed out every time I leave the house and every time I have to like walk through the city. Again, as someone with ADHD, I get really overstimulated because New York is just like constantly in your face. It is constantly coming at you. Whether it's just like the amount of people, the amount of noise, the cars, the bikes, the like weird experiences in the park, and the way people interact with each other, and trying to get to a coffee shop and running into people, like it's just the sound of the train. It's a lot. So I get really overstimulated, which is, I mean, it makes me feel anxious, angry, exhausted, like just all of these negative feelings. So some of the ways I'm trying to cope with that is that I wear my headphones almost all the time to just kind of like block out some of the noise, and I also try to find like quiet places I can escape to. So I really like the library at school because it has a beautiful view of Fifth Avenue, and it's also very quiet in there, and there's a quiet study space. And yeah, just doing like small little things like that that help me figure out how to cope in the city. Goal number 5, and this one's a doozy, is to find housing for me and James. James is planning on moving here with me in late December, early January, once he finishes his undergraduate degree back in California. But before he can move in with me, we have to have housing to move into. At some point in the next 2 months, like between November and like December 15th, I need to be scouting for housing, find housing in an area that we're comfortable with, at a price point that we're comfortable with, that is like close enough to our respective like things that we have to do, like school and work and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a challenge, and I have just like taken task I need to get done and I've put it over here where I can't see it because I'm not dealing with it right now. I had to do midterms recently. That was my focus. We will cross that bridge when I get there. The last thing that I want to say is that I really want to get back to this. I really want to get back to making YouTube videos, being more present on social media, and sharing more of my experience, because this is unlike anything I have ever experienced, and if I can help other people kind of adjust to something like this, I would love nothing more. So I really want to get back to doing this. I want to talk more about my experience with ADHD. I want to talk more about graduate school, and I want to talk more about fashion, since that is what I am interested in. With all of that being said, that brings us to the end of the video, I guess. Those are all of my fears and goals for my first year of graduate school. I am excited to be here. I am past the part of me being fearful and terrified constantly. And like I said, I just finished my midterms and they were actually really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun doing them, and everything right now academically feels good and right. I'm very happy about that, and stay tuned to watch the vlogs because I do talk about it a lot there. And yeah, here's to my first year of grad school. I will talk to you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe for all of the above. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!